2020 was a life-changing year for many people. I absolutely loved it. I've never had more free time in my life. And in fact, I would say that the ratio of free time to existential dread that I had was just unparalleled. And I want it back because 2024, the year that we're talking about, was just so miserable for me. It seems that the powers that be decided that they needed to take back hate. Number 10 is not Shadow Generations. It's the Crimson Diamond. I have a soft spot for text parser games, adventure games where you can type anything into issue commands. It inspires a feeling of limitless possibilities. You're represented in the world, there's surroundings, people, items to interact with, and your own inventory. It's on you to think about what to type in order to progress through the situation. So yeah, you're restricted by pre-programmed responses in this video game, but it always feels like maybe it could be something more. I loved watching my dad play through the original Space Quest, King's Quest, and Police Quest type games when I was growing up. So occasionally I like to dip back into this genre that almost barely exists. I checked out Tachyon Dreams Anthology, highly recommended from 2024, kind of, but disqualified from the list. And I wanted to play another text parser game. The Crimson Diamond was, well, the only other text parser released this year, or last year, in 2024. Rather than questing in space or a fantasy land, you are instead trying to survive a murder mystery out in the middle of nowhere in a manor with a bunch of strangers. I want to say that it's actually like Nancy Drew. However, I don't know what that is, but it feels like the right thing to say. As I eventually learned playing this game, it was heavily inspired by the Laura Bow series, also by Sierra Online, makers of all the other Quest games. In Laura Bow and the Crimson Diamond, you play as a woman. You have to be at the right place at the right time to eavesdrop on conversations, to try to figure out what's going on in the background while still solving traditional adventure game puzzles of putting the right thing into the right whatever. At some point, based on your efficacy, you're quizzed on the whole ordeal, assuming you survive and make it through the entire game. To be honest, I am more about the space and fantasy adventures, or at least something sort of like Sam and Max, rather than this. It really is more on the girl side of things. You know how like every woman is obsessed with true crime? You all know this is true. It feels like this game is attempting to scratch whatever that itch is. I don't really have it, but I did like this game, which is why it's in the 10 spot. Number 9 is Visions of Mana. I am digging deep on this one because Visions of Mana was a big disappointment. I don't love this game, although I did love Secret of Mana. The others in the franchise range from decent to just so terrible. I had high hopes here because the game looks absolutely beautiful in its high-res Japanese fantasy setting when I'm so tired of 90% of JRPGs now looking like either a Tales game, sorry Tales, or Hyperdimension Neptunia, which if you know that game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I wanted a lot out of this one, but unfortunately I was disappointed. Visions of Mana features a lot of repetitious fighting and an exhausting storyline where I was just not feeling connected with the final product. I get the impression that a lot of these types of games aren't necessarily created and should be played for necessarily the gameplay itself, but really because you just enjoy the vibe that much. This is not to say that I disliked the gameplay outright. It has moments, and some of the boss fights were really cool. However, one of the most memorable things about this game for me was trying to break boundaries and collect some loot a little bit earlier than I was supposed to. That was so much fun, sort of, a little frustrating as well, but that's what really stands out to me. And if that's the thing that stands out to your audience that is playing this game, that is insane enough to check out a mana game in 2024, that means there's a bit of an issue there. But don't worry, because of course Square Enix decided to shut down the studio right after the game was released. So we're all safe, and the Mana series has gone back behind the shed. We've Old Yellered it. Don't worry. I guess Secret of Mana is still cool. Go play that. Number 8 is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Whoa, buddy. This is one that I have not yet finished because holy crap, is it a lot. It's pretty stressful at times. The difficulty spikes come out of nowhere, and it's like you're fighting against Cell, and your name is Krillin. Yeah, man. I don't usually like arena fighters that much, but Spike Chunsoft really knows how to build one sometimes, when they're using Dragon Ball characters at least, taking advantage of a full 3D space where you can fly all over the place while attempting to pulverize your opponent. Sparking Zero is the follow-up to the 3 Budokai Tenkaichi games and Raging Blast games, sort of, not exactly within the same series, but it plays very similarly and is also by the same developer. Now, after skipping a generation, basically, we've got a new one with Sparking Zero. Personally, if we're talking Dragon Ball Z, I did like Xenoverse, specifically Xenoverse 2, a bit more, which feels like its own unique adventure in the Dragon Ball franchise. Xenoverse was developed by Dimps rather than Spike Chunsoft, although it does feel quite inspired by the Sparking video games. Sparking Zero, though, for better or worse, feels more in spirit to being a true, straightforward fighting video game, at least arena fighting video game. While it does get very hard at times, it is also really well made. I haven't come close to finishing it yet, but I will be going back. I talked about how 2024 was just such a trash year for me, absolutely awful. I hated it. It really was so bad, but 2025 has actually been so much better, and I am looking to make more internet content. It is just so much better right now. Number 7 is Ys 10, Nordics. I really wish I could have put Ys 10 at number 1, and this is going to turn into a complaint. Actually, I've already sort of complained about this with Visions of Mana, but a sort of theme of this list where it's a whole lot of games of franchises where if their best games were released this year, they probably would have been at number 1. With Ys 10, a lot of the combat once again becomes repetitive and the story feels like it hardly matters. Back to ragging on the Tales of series, which, man, I do actually really like those games, but they really drive me nuts sometimes. They're oftentimes just great in the beginning. The initial premise owns, and you're just fully invested in the character dynamics. All the big bad stuff goes down, and then you're just in awe of what the heck could possibly happen next. And then the generic anime tropes come out. All the optional dialogue is just drudge nonsense. It doesn't really impact anything. It's like comedic, except nobody's laughing, and there's so much filler conversation. Unfortunately, also due to the budget, I'm guessing, being nice here, a lot of the dungeons and areas start to look very similar as well. The Ys franchise feels like it's kind of turning into that. The Ys franchise is slowly turning into the same thing as The Legend of Heroes. They're slowly merging into one. And that's not a good thing because each game brings something really good and distinct to the table. And to have them meld together, they're losing their individuality and what made each one truly unique and special. The Legend of Heroes is supposed to be about immersion into a living, breathing world with NPCs that all have an individual story if you bother to pay attention to it. NPC interactions hold just as much weight as the dungeon exploration, or at least it should, at least in the better Legend of Heroes games. Ys, however, is supposed to be The Legend of Zelda on overdrive, less running back and forth, more Adol zipping around, slaying enemies fast. Ys 10, similar to Ys 9, slams this tradition into the wall with lots of character dialogue. I still liked this game, I enjoyed playing it, I played through all of it, but I did not love it. I guess this really has been kind of a rant list. I didn't really play every game under the sun last year, and man, I wish I was one of those YouTubers. I wish I was NeverChris, and I just had this schedule of playing video games 6 days a week, and I'm playing through all of the new releases and old games, and then I'm like getting my ass kicked in Street Fighter. I would love that. That is my dream. Perhaps if everybody comes on board, I'll be able to do that. And then I'll be happy. Because Darkside Phil is definitely a happy man, right? That's me. Number 6 is the most real video game awards show winner. That's actually real. That's not a goofy pre-recorded YouTube video. It's Astrobot. Alana Pierce, let's get that crying started. People know Astrobot, right? It goes full in on corporate shilling, but in the most lovable way ever, where I feel like a major jerk just saying that. So instead, let's just say that this is a celebration of PlayStation. You know, I do actually miss the PlayStation 2 era, where companies other than Nintendo would try their hand at mascot platformers, and where every game wasn't a shooter, Souls-like, or Assassin's Creed. The experience isn't very deep here or in many of those other games, but especially here, it is quite fun to play. You know what I would really love? Another Gravity Rush, or even a game in the style of Eco. I have in my notes here as I'm making this video, make more fun of the real video game awards show, but I didn't actually write anything else. So I don't know what I'm supposed to say here. What the heck is this thing? I click randomly into it. Okay, I get it. It's Stuttering Craig. He's from Screw Attack. He's bringing back no nonsense gaming. But like, what is this video? This award show, this video. You're in an arcade. Who are these people? Best Video Game Journalist Award goes to Madam Savvy. I spent literally 10 minutes trying to figure out what the heck a Madam Savvy was, what she's doing on the internet, where her work is actually presented. I don't know. I literally don't know what is going on here. Number 5 is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. A Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game. I think, at least. I really do love it, although Breath of the Wild was quite good. The point, though, is that I really love old school Zelda, and Echoes of Wisdom is an old school Zelda game, but under a brand new lens. It's as if the 3D revolution in video games never really happened, as it did, but instead Zelda went off in another direction, which is sort of what happened with the Link's Awakening remake that came out on the Switch just prior. Echoes of Wisdom, of course, doesn't play quite the same, and to be honest, I was worried when this game was first announced. I figured combat would be slow because you'd have to summon monsters to fight for you, and I dreaded that every ledge would require summoning a table to climb on top of, and it would make traversing every area just a slog. Thankfully enough, though, while there is a little bit of that, it is smooth enough and the game is not tedious. It has charming references to A Link to the Past. It's a lot of fun. You can innovate strategies and break things. It definitely scratches the old school itch while not being just another carbon copy. I feel like this game was just so overlooked, and I recommend going to check it out. You know, it's actually my dream to someday host an award for the real video game awards for my icon, legend, tribal chief, Stuttering Craig. I love this man ever since Screw Attack. You know, I want to be on the same level as a Madam Savvy. Number 4 is The Legend of Heroes, Trails Through Daybreak. Yeah, I still had to include it. I was a little disappointed that this wasn't my favorite game of the year, but I do feel like Trails is slowly going downhill with each new release. Not that it's actually bad, it's still in the number 4 spot, but it really feels as if the individual NPC conversations and stories are not as interesting as they used to be, especially back on the 2D entries, which then raises another question. Is it harder to get into the NPC stories when all of the graphics are sort of PlayStation 3 era 3D models rather than the best of what 2D art has to offer, even though everyone else has already moved into 3D? There's some of that, but also I feel like the tropes of The Legend of Heroes just keep repeating over and over and over, sometimes with the same characters, sometimes with new characters, but it isn't really covering new ground with the story. That said though, the gameplay is changing, which ironically enough, I'm not that much of a fan of because again, it's slowly merging with the Ys franchise in terms of its gameplay presentation. A lot of repetitious spamming of the attack button on the overworld, and then sometimes you get into turn-based battles. Turn-based battles are not a bad thing. Repetitious B-level hack and slash is exhausting though, and that's what we got here. It's so sad. But yeah, apparently this turned into a rant, but at the end of the day, I do like the new areas within the game. I like a lot of the new characters. I like the returning characters, and it is interesting as I am invested in this Goliath of a series. I'm so positive here. Number 3 is Black Myth Wukong. I hate this game. It's also a Souls-like. It's exactly like Dark Souls. I was playing this game. I ended up looking over a Reddit argument. Yeah, that's my first mistake there, where people were going at each other over whether this game was like Dark Souls. And so much controversy going on over there. People are all like, it's not like Dark Souls at all. When you die, you aren't punished like in Dark Souls. So it's totally different. There's no punishment system. And it's like, yeah, but everything else is exactly cut from the same cloth. But luckily, the Dark Souls format is pretty good. The story here is absolutely nutso. Or at least if you have no real clue what's going on here, it's a sequel to the Chinese story of Journey to the West, which, did you know that was published in 1592? This isn't really something that's advertised about the game, at least here in the West, that this is a sequel to that franchise. But if you don't know what's going on in the original, it's gonna be a struggle keeping up with what's going on here. Going into this game, my pre-established knowledge of Journey to the West consists of the following 3 things. Dragon Ball. It's very loosely based on Journey to the West. A lot of the original characters in the first story have a direct correlation, I guess. The God of High School, which is a manhwa, Korean comic, is so nutty, which also has an anime, is, I guess, related. Though if I told you how, it would be considered a spoiler. We don't want to spoil the God of High School. This series is so nutty that I have no clue what it turned into. 3. I once reviewed a game called The Monkey King, The Legend Begins on the Wii. I remember almost nothing about it except it's a shoot 'em up, and apparently I gave it a 2 out of 10. Reading about Black Myth Wukong, a lot of the appeal of the story is how the characters have grown, what is repeating, and what characters are doing differently now that they've learned the lessons that they did in the original story. That makes me want to go back to read or watch a movie of the original Journey to the West so that I can fully appreciate what I was playing here, because it really did feel like a whole lot of nonsense my first time around. However, there is a major issue inhibiting this, which is that this game pissed me off so much. It's one of the best made games I've played in a long time, and there are some epic moments here, and every time I took down one of these miserable piece of crap bosses, I was celebrating. But dear Lord, did I hate this. It is so hard at times. There's no easy mode. You can't really even spam crap. You think you're doing great with a newly thought out strategy. You've innovated something within the skill tree. You go to take on a new boss, and then they just smack you into the ground like you never had a chance. I loved this game, but man, I'm pretty sure it has just shortened my life. I'm on the verge of a stroke playing this game, getting heart palpitations. You know, summoning the energy to play this game is like, it's like firing off a Kiko Ho. And there is your Monkey King reference, bitch. Number 2 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Remakes do not qualify for the NeverChris Top 10 list, which reliably come out each year, every single year since this channel started. Which is why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has no fears of getting disqualified, nor did 2020's Final Fantasy VII Remake get disqualified from that year's list, which is definitely on the channel, because, can we say it now finally? These games aren't remakes, they're sequels, buddy. You know this. You got it. Rebirth deals with the mess that took place in Remake that rocked all of Final Fantasy VII as we know it. Who's dead? Who's alive? Who's both? Who's neither? What does it even all mean? It's all up in the air, and this is kind of the Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars reference, of their proposed trilogy where who the heck even knows what's going to happen? A lot of whether or not I'm going to ultimately appreciate this game and love it or hate it depends on what is going to happen in the next game. I could be really pissed at this game's place on this list if the next Final Fantasy VII game turns out in a way that I am dreading. But I cannot allow my pessimism to punish this game now in my 2024 list that's definitely on time, even though the next game will act as a clarifying lens to the events that take place within this game. For the game itself, I loved hanging out with these characters. It's beautiful, the lands are a blast to traverse, and it's just very fun. The open world content, which you can ignore, did get tiring, although that's another philosophical question to start going into. Should tons of dull optional content influence your final score? We'll save that one for another day though. This video is getting long enough as it is. This game, though, is a good one, and it is better than Final Fantasy XVI. The number 1 game of the year is Stellar Blade. I love Nier. I love fast action combat games. I love the anime cyberpunk aesthetic. I love when a little bit of realism is foregone and all of the characters look good. I love the creativity, the story, the gameplay, the level design, and basically everything about this game. Yeah, I could nitpick a few areas where maybe it could have been boosted from like an A- to an A+. But other than that, I have almost no complaints about Stellar Blade. I feel the game was heavily overlooked this year as compared to the attention that it should have received. Games have been pulling away from this style, self-contained, generally linear, well thought out stories that has a sleek design. If you played Nier Automata and you enjoyed it, you should check this game out. If you haven't, you should play both. They're both really, really good. So I hope you liked this top 10 video. You know, we're trying something new here. You might have noticed it. And I told myself that when I inevitably come back, we're not making any slop videos anymore. And then I make a top 10 video in March of the following year. You know, everyone in January, when they put these videos out, they're like, sorry, I'm late, guys. So we'll see what happens with that. But I want you to follow me on the journey. Make sure you smash that like button. You know, we're supposed to put these little calls to action at the front of the video because everybody dips out about right now. You're not doing that, are you? No, you're not, because you're listening to me. Subscribe. You subscribed, right? And follow me for more content. We'll try to put something out weekly. We will. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Madam Savvy, she's going down. I don't know who this person is. She's going to like this video. She's subscribing just like you did right now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.